there, server from 17 once again. This is my Devil May Cry SSS Dante Must Die walkthrough. This is mission 9, entitled For You. I actually know the names now, thankfully. And this is moving into endgame Nero, up until actual endgame. And then the transition to Dante, which is going to throw a lot of players off. And for a lot of people going for the S ranks, the easy part of the game is over, the hard part is about to begin. This right here is the introduction to the squad of Angelos, which we're going to exploit. When they do this, all you have to do is wait for it to fire, then let go of your charged shot, and you will destroy almost everything. It's insanely powerful. That right there, for some reason, didn't kill the lackeys. And I could have actually waited and maybe they'd charge another one and get double style points, but I decided to just mess them up. However, the AI is kind of random in this game, so there are times when they just don't do that move I just showed. It's the easiest way to deal with a group of them, but if they decide not to do it for whatever reason, which they can sometimes, you can be running around for 5 minutes and it's a nightmare. So I recommend restarting if you don't get it, so that you can get it and you can continue onwards. This level here is one of those levels that I just don't really remember that much from my time with the game. And as such, there are parts of it that are really tricky. Mainly the Angelo and the Gladius fights, which sound like they'd be a nightmare, but they're just frustrating. They're not hard, they're awkward. And I think my strategy you're about to see is I run around the room, charging the gun, keeping the Angelos off screen, and I destroy the Gladiuses, and then I focus on the Angelos. If I was playing as Dante, I would probably focus on the Angelos first, and then focus on the Gladiuses, because distorted real impacts can kill them really quickly. But we'll talk about that when we play as him. So through here is the slow time room, which I don't know if you can actually slow time in this very first fight. Maybe you can, maybe I should have done that. But we'll soon find out. Like I say, I'm rusty, folks. I make no excuses. I'm just not as good as I used to be. So, yeah, you can't slow time yet. It's just a ton of swords and a ton of armoured angel men. So, the one thing that gets me with this game is when you have enemies off screen, they pacify. They move onto screen, but they pacify and they don't attack. When you lock on this game, it turns the camera, which it should do. And there are a lot of techniques you just cannot do unless you lock on, which is, a sign of this game's age, because Bayonetta, which is a very similar game made by a guy who essentially created the series in a lot of ways, has the lock-on of the old games, but it also has input commands to do the moves without the lock-on, which is a revolutionary notion in the face of this game. And it makes me wonder just how simple a room like this would be if you could completely exploit the camera that way. Like, Dante has a move called Drive, which hits multiple enemies, and if you charge it, it does massive damage, massive style points, massive range. But you hardly ever get a chance to charge it, because the enemies are always on you. So if you kept them off screen and started charging it, they would slowly be moving forward, and you'd be able to unleash it, and you'd probably be able to use Drive for the entire game. And don't get me wrong, I don't think people would all the time, but it'd allow the folk who can't do anything else to do that, I guess. So in some ways, I suppose it's a good thing, because it stops the AI from being completely cheesable, like you can do in the Bloody Palace with Nero's gun, which, if you want to know what I mean by that, that level is like a circle. It's just an open plate. It's like the final destination from Smash Bros. Melee. And you can literally run around the outside edge of that map, keeping the camera off the enemies, charging your gun. And you can pretty much kill everything but the bosses and the 2 blitzers that way, and cheese the entire palace if you're not very good at the game. I don't recommend it, because if you don't like the palace and you're trying to get the achievements, you want to go through it once, get the best rank, and then never touch it again. Which is a little bit what I did, because I was never a big fan of the Bloody Palace in this game. I much preferred it in the 3rd game. But here's me showing you my amazing max act skills. I get there eventually, after several presses of the trigger. And here is the first of the cage fights. So, a couple of scarecrows. I love the scarecrows on this game. They're so much fun to fight. Only thing that gets me with them is when they devil trigger. Devil trigger is this mechanic that I think is really interesting and unique, but sometimes it just annoys me in no other way than, do they really have to be so resilient to stun? Like, you gave them more life, you gave them more defense, you gave them more damage. Did you really have to make them Mr. T? No, we didn't need Mr. T. They were okay before. And there are counters to it, so it's one of those things where if you're going to devil trigger, you stun them better. It's just, how many times have you gone to stun something and it's attacked through your move and ruined your combo and you've kind of gone and shook your fist at it like an old man on a park bench angry at the pigeons? I know I do that a lot. I'm not even that old. But here are the Mega Scarecrows. I don't know if they have a name, you know, Jim or something. But they're really fun to fight. You just need to keep them off camera. If you're not comboing them and they're on camera, they can do some ridiculously heavy-hitting multi-hit attacks. It's really bad news. Oh, that right there as well. If you hit it before it comes out, you can generally get through this area before the lasers spawn, which I think is really funny. Because I'm not the biggest fan of a camera that moves by itself and an environmental laser puzzle. Because the amount of times the camera turns, it's like, oh, put you in front of the laser, sorry. Ridiculous. But here is a couple of frosts. The level's smaller than I would like, but it can work to your advantage because you can swing one frost into another. That right there is what happens when you do a grab when you can hear a frost attacking. However, you know, I didn't have the volume on, so I'll let myself off. But the cool thing is if you do get frozen, like when I got frozen then, Devil Trigger will get you out of it. Devil Trigger is so useful on this game, I really should use it more. But I just kind of don't. You'll notice that with a lot of Devil May Cry players. You get to a point on Devil May Cry 4 where you just kind of don't use Devil Trigger for anything other than buster grabs on bosses and the invulnerability. Like, I rarely see, you know, a lot of the higher level people use it at all. Unless they're using it for specific techniques. Uh-oh. That moment when you're trying to grab anything you can just to stop them from attacking. Always fun. But this is one of those encounters that's more intimidating than it is difficult. The Frosts, as I've said, are an enemy that can very easily beat you up if you let them, but once you know how to fight them, you can generally do a better job than I'm doing now. In fact, this fight's salvaged a little bit here. It started rough as hell, but it's got a little better. It's all about familiarity. When you first play any game, you know, stuff surprises you, stuff beats you up. I got kicked the other day by Burial. I didn't even know that dude had a kick. I've killed him so many times. Like, probably over 100 times I've killed that boss. And I never even realised, if you stood up his ass for long enough, he did a really weird kick. And he hit me with it. And it was just the funniest moment ever, because I had no idea he could do that. You know, the Burial in my head does a very quick uppercut, there's a whole bunch of slashes, some bullshit fire pillars, and an AoE that I hate. That's Burial. And out of nowhere, just kicks me in the face like a donkey. It was brilliant. But this is a really fun room, this one. The assaults, like, for some reason, they're either really aggressive or they're super stupid. There's no middle ground with them. Watch out for that too. I managed to get the iframes that time. You'll notice through this walkthrough that when I activate my Devil Trigger, there's times when I still get hit, and that purely stems from the fact that I'm not very good at using its iframes. It's a technique I never did back in the day. It's something that I came to understand later on. I used to just use the jump because I was conditioned to use the jump by Devil May Cry 3. You know, I was one of those players that began with Trickster, and then as soon as I realised just how powerful the jump was, I never used Trickster ever again. But here's the Blitz. Charge shot him till you stun him. Throw him in Devil Trigger. If you throw him 4 times, I think he dies. So just keep spamming that throw. It's not stylish, it's not difficult, it's just get dead, asshole. And it's that simple, really. Also, if this thing grabs you, you can get out of it with the Devil Trigger. If you get caught in its stun-locking laser, if you Devil Trigger, you can get out of it. A lot of ways to get out of this enemy's attack. And I know a lot of people don't like the Blitz. I think it's a bit harsh. some of the criticisms of him, I think is arguably the best enemy in this game, design-wise, because he's the most interesting. The problem with him is, because he is so powerful and he's so fast and he does that whole cheesy jumping around when you stun him when he should really stand still and let you beat him up, seeing as how you've earned it. Like, I think people forget, because he's difficult and because he is tricky, that he has no value, and I just don't think that's true. I think that the blitzers are amazing. I don't think they're anywhere near as nuanced or as interesting as the shadows, because that's probably the best enemy I think that's ever been designed. It's such an intelligent monster design. The attention to detail and the time that game came out. Like, the shadows, if you're not aggressive to them, they're not aggressive to you. Like, they respond like cats do. You know, it's so clever, and they're amazing. You know, I can't even begin to say how good that game is. That right there, you see that? Tried to get the iframes and I fucked it up. But this is Agnes, who I always want to call Angus for some reason, but it's Agnes. Whenever he summons the swords, I recommend you destroy them so that you don't have to chase them down. All you want to do here is do enough damage to get him into this state where you start stunning him. If you want to maximise on damage, you really need to understand how long you can beat him up before you knock him away from yourself, so that you can beat him up to the edge of that knockback and then buster him. Agnes is not very hard, as long as you know how to fight him. Know that whenever he flies up to the middle of the room, he's going to try and steal your life. You have to beat him up. If you don't beat him up, he will steal your life. And then, the further through the fight that he gets, the different things he summons. He summons the fire dogs, he summons those asshole fish things that he spins around with, which is arguably his most dangerous attack. He's a nightmare. And if you've never fought him before, or you don't know how to fight him, he can be really tough. The good news is, this is not the best fight, but on the boss gauntlet coming up later on in chapter, is it 18, 19? I think it's 19. I'm going to show you a much better encounter against him. So, anybody wondering how to dodge this move? That's one way of doing it, even though I got hit at the end. You need to wait till the end, jump out of its range. It's the best way to avoid it. However, if he starts doing it and you're pinned in a wall, there's not much you can do. It's really cheesy. And he spams it too, which I've never agreed with. It's just that cheesy part of some boss design where they get low on life and they turn into arseholes. This move is very dangerous, but if you can stun him before he does it, you'll probably finish him off, because the buster attack does massive damage to this boss. It also looks really cool too. And there we go. There goes good old Agnes. And that's the end of the level. So let's see how we did. 12 minutes on the clear time. 23,000 stylish points, that's not too bad. And 100% orbs, so that's actually a nice... It's one of the better scores you've seen me get. But thank you very much for watching. I hope the video's helping, and you take care now.